Okay, we're back on the bench. This is going to be day 3 or 4 of this build, and we're going to wrap this thing up today. We're going to install our electronics, cut our bays, program our radio, and get everything completely ready to fly. So we're just going to finish it all up. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is install this ESC where I want it, and where I want it is right here, just in between these fins and right in front there. And I'm not going to cut a bay for it. I'm just going to stick it on there with some Velcro. So, hook side goes on the plane, sticky side goes on whatever you're going to put on and off. It's just it's the way I do it. You can do it any way you want. If I can get this peeled. There we go. Alright. We're just going to stick that ESC. Yep, right on there. That's fine. It's not coming off. Okay, so you shorten these motor wires and get the plug soldered on. So I'm just going to make these motor wires short enough that they're going to plug into these ESC wires, no problem. They're going to stay out of the prop without having to really do anything except maybe put a zip tie around them. So I'm going to cut them right about there. Grab some cutters. Yep. There we go. Cut them off just like that. We need to get our soldering iron up here. Plug that in. Okay, let's get that warming up. Get our cleaner and some helping hands and some solder. There we go. And the bullet connectors for the motor. There they are. And we're going to need some heat shrink. Okay. Yeah, it's about the right size. All right. Good. You could take the motor off the plane and do this. I'm just going to do it right on the plane. It's going to be fine. Just you want to be careful whenever you're soldering anything near your plane. If you drip solder onto this foam, it's just going to melt it. It's going to leave a hole, and it's going to leave a little droplet of solder on your plane. So don't do that. Just be careful. We're going to have to solder some other things near the plane, the VTX, the camera. So be careful with your solder. Clean your solder tip often, and don't let solder build up on it. Let's see if we're hot enough yet. No, not quite. Okay, let's get some plugs out. Just gonna make sure our heat shrink's gonna fit over those. Yeah, okay. Fits perfectly. Too perfectly, I can't get it out. There we go. Okay. Goes away. we got solder flowing nice. Just gonna tin these motor wires. There we go. Yep. Good. Okay. Just take our plugs and solder one to each wire. Okay. Your fingers are going to get a little hot if you hold them the way I'm holding them here. If you don't have tough hands, use your helping hands or something like that. My fingers aren't getting quite hot there, but I'm tough. Oof. Oof. That was too hot. I had to hold it for too long and try to adjust it. There we go. Alright. We're just going to let this cool before we try to slide the heat shrink on. That was pretty cool. Okay, I think I chose the wrong size heat shrink. They don't really fit now. I'm going to grab a bigger piece. Yeah, that'll definitely fit. Don't have anything in between. No. Okay. Just slide these on here. Now I'm going to plug them in to the ESC just to see where I need to put that heat shrink to completely hide any possible connections. There we go. I'm going to grab a lighter and I'm going to slide this heat shrink up just like that. I'm just going to do all three at once and just heat them all up. There we go. Good. So I put the heat shrink on in a way so that it hides all the metal, but you can still swap connections if your motor's going the wrong direction. Like I said, it's not a programmable ESC. I mean, it is programmable, but you can't change direction without just swapping two motor wires. So if we find the motor's going the wrong direction, we're just going to swap two wires. Okay, so I've got on the bottom of my plane here my servo wires coming out to my receiver. I need to get my ESC wire also to that receiver. And I think I'm going to run the receiver on the bottom of the plane, on this side. You generally, RC wisdom, your control system goes on the right wing, or yeah, on the right wing. Your FPV system goes on the left wing. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. You can do it the other way if you want. It's just that's the way people do it for some reason. So we definitely put these in front of the CG. We have to be careful when we're cutting these wires in because that battery bay is like right here. And we don't want to cut into that to bury our wires because it's not thick enough. So we want to run the wires along the front like that. We got to be careful of our spars too. Maybe like that. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the best bet. So we want it in front of the CG line there. Okay, so we get an idea anyway. Unplug that, separate that. So we need to get this wire down to the bottom of the plane so that we can connect it. We could just run it around the back like this. Maybe put some tape on it and that would be fine, but it wouldn't look very good. So I'm going to put a hole through the foam here and run it down through that hole. I'm just going to make a small hole, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use this piece of control rod that we cut off and a lighter. And Velcro is very sticky. I'm just going to make a hole, and I'm going to take that plug off and put the wires through and then put the plug back on. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to heat up the end of this rod. It's not glowing hot. Pretty hot. I'm just going to pass it right through here. Yeah, just like that. And that just made a little hole. So we're going to make that hole a little bigger than that so the wire can get through. So I'm just going to heat it up again. And just expand the size of that hole. There we go. Yeah, and that should definitely be enough for our wire to get through. Okay, so now we're just going to remove this plug, and the way you remove these plugs, if you've never done it before, just going to work. You just have to lift these little tabs, and then the plug slides right out. It's pretty easy. My dog is barking at something. Just like that, and then the wire just slides right out. You see that? The wire's not in the plug. I'm just going to take all three out. Alright, sorry about that. I had to go see who was at the door. Alright, so just taking these wires out of this plug. Okay, so I've got that plug off. It's just 3 wires. I'm just going to put them down through this hole here. Right out to the bottom, I hope. Okay, come on. Got 1. Got 2. And the third one does not want to come out. Always one that's going to be tough, right? I'm just trying to get that plug free so it'll push through. Come on, you little bastard. There we go. There it is. There she is. Okay. Alright, so we got that through there. We can pull the wire tight and stick our ESC back down. There we go. There we go. Now you can see where, maybe you can't, right through there, right down to the bottom. And that's good because it gives me an idea of where the foam is. I know I could still cut ahead of that and not get into that battery bay. So, good. Okay, so that's done. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut trenches for these wires to get to our receiver. And I said I'm going to put my receiver on this side. So we can trench it right through here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to put our receiver like right there. So let me grab a pen. And I'm going to show you how to do this just using a knife. It's a pretty simple method. Now, when you're cutting your hole for your receiver, don't forget that there's going to be plugs on the end of this, on these pins. So you need to account for that too. As you can see, once you plug a thing onto there, it's quite longer, so we're going to cut it just like that. Just like that. Just ahead of the CG. So I'm just going to draw a box around it and the length of the plug. And on this end. There we go. Now I can see. You probably can't see it, but I can see it. So, now we have to cut that out and kind of trench that out. There's a myriad ways of doing this. You can do it a lot of different ways. Some guys use a Dremel, and they'll Dremel that out. Some guys use something hot, and they'll stick it in there and cut it out. But all you really need is a snap blade. So what you want to do is you're going to set your snap blade to the depth that you want, which is just a little hair more than your receiver. Yep. You just want to cut that edge that you just drew at that depth. And lock my blade. Okay. Yeah. You're going to cut into your wing just at that depth. Let me get a fresh piece of blade here. And the key to this method of digging these bays is to control the depth of the cut. If you can do that, then you're good. Come on. Okay, so we've got that square cut, we've got the edges cut. We can take the piece of laminate off of there. Now all we're going to do is we're going to cut a grid. I'm going to get my other knife for this. I think I dropped it. And I'm going to get a fresh blade for that too. There. Those snap blades I bought. I got them from somewhere. It's not where I usually get them from, and they're just not cutting well. So we're going to use the X-Acto. So you just figure out how deep it needs to be. Okay, and we're just going to cut a grid of about 2 to 4 millimeter squares. I'm just going to cut lines. That's a nice sharp knife. All through there. Just like that. And then we're going to cut the other way. I'm going to make this grid of little foam squares. Just like that. What we need now is like some needle nose pliers, or what I like to use are these surgical grabbers. And you're going to reach down in there to the bottom of those cuts you made and grab the bottom of that square and just pluck it out like that. And you're just going to keep doing that until you've plucked them all out. You want to get these things down all the way down to the bottom and just pluck that foam right out. I'm going to grab a trash can and get it closer over here so I can just drop them right in. Just like that. And you'll see, you'd be surprised at how well that works. You can see I just dug out that first row there. And we're getting a pretty good bay cut out there. Now the bottom's going to be a little rough, but nobody's ever going to see that, so it doesn't really matter aesthetically. And it doesn't really matter to the strength of the wing, so it doesn't really matter. I'll show you what I mean as soon as I'm done plucking all these little foam pieces out. You can grab a couple at a time, just pull them off. Okay, there you go. Just going to clean up this bottom a little bit. Right on this edge. And that's it. See, we got a nice bay cut in there. Perfect size. And the right depth for our receiver. Fits right in there, and we've got enough room for the wires there. So now what we need to do is get all these wires over to that bay. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife and we're just going to cut a line around and into that bay. Now, right about there is where that battery bay starts. So we're not as far as that. And you want to cut pretty deep. It doesn't have to be super deep, but pretty deep because you want to hide that wire right into there. And once we're done, we're going to put some more laminate over this. Don't worry about messing up the laminate. And we're going to take these wires and just tuck them in there into these cuts. And a screwdriver is really what's best for that job. And be careful not to cut any of your wires or poke through any of your wires. I'm just going to take them and just kind of work them down into these slots that you just made. There we go. I'm just using a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm just getting the wire right between the two slots and just kind of pushing it down there. You know, standing it on its end, the 3-wire cable, so that it's as thin as possible. And I'll show you in a second what that ends up looking like. Okay, you can kind of see there that as I'm tucking that wire in, which way I need to move this like this, It's just disappearing into that slot I cut. We're just going to wrap it around right into that bay. I'm going to do the same thing for this side. We're going to cut this one straight across into this where this one is, and both of those are going to follow a trench right into this bay. And I'll show you. Stay with me. We'll do it all. Okay, that one's in. We're just going to cut from where this wire comes out of the servo. There's a little laminate there. Okay. I'm just going to cut straight across. Deep enough, but not too deep. We're going to cut straight into where this wire comes out. Tough to get through the glue part. There we go. And just straight across. To that same channel there. There we go. So I just cut it. I just connected the dots from this one right to this one, right to this one. I'm just going to go ahead and tuck those wires in to those slots I just made. It might seem like cutting all these grooves in your wing is going to lessen the strength, but it isn't. And when we're all done, we're going to put some more laminate over the top, and it's going to be just fine. It's going to be just as strong as if we hadn't cut the slots. Got so much glue on this one wire, it does not want to tuck in to these slots here. There we go. There we go. We're going to tuck in now. You don't want to widen these slots. Like with the spars, I was running something through the slots to widen them. You don't want to do that. You want to tuck these in and want the foam to just close right back up over top. Now we're not going to put any glue on this, because if we ever have to change one of these servos, you know, having that whole wire glued in would be just an absolute nightmare. So if you break a servo or you burn out a servo, you don't want to have to go through there and try to dig that whole wire that's been gooped in out. Okay. There we go. Okay, you see that second ESC wire from here? Just goes right across, right into this hole, right across, right meets up with that other servo wire right in. Now we're just going to run this one right in the same slot. And then we're going to plug them into our receiver, and I'll tell you what order to plug them in so that the default Taranis setting will work for you. Now, if you're not using a Taranis, you're going to have to do something different. But the default Taranis settings are, for a Delta Wing, throttle is channel 1, right wing is channel 2, left wing is channel 3. Now, if you don't plug them in that order, you can change it, but there's no reason not to use the default settings. Just use those. So that's the order we'll plug them in. Now right here where I've got 3 wires in this one slot, it's getting a little tight. And this black one doesn't want to go in. But I'm going to get it. Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay. I never put my plug back on. Signal. Right there. Oh, I'll put it on upside down. Okay. Signal. And like that. There we go. They just click in, and then power, and then ground. There we go. And ground. They just click right in there. And that's it. Okay, so we're in channel 1. Number 1, listen to our receiver. We'll plug in the ESC. Make sure you get the signal on the signal pin, the ground on the ground pin. Channel 2 is going to be the right wing, which is going to be this wing, which is the shorter, no, the longer of the 2 wires, because it's the one that wraps around. So that's going to go into channel 2. Get the signal to the outside. And channel 3 is our left wing servo. There we go. That's it. That's all the connections you need to make. I'm just going to tuck the wires underneath like that and slide that thing right in there. Just tuck any excess wire under these plugs here. There we go. That is in there. Alright, so now controls should be all hooked up. We can test it, but that's fine. We'll just move on to video and test it all at once. So what I'm going to do now is I want to recover this with laminate. We cover all these, the bottoms of these servos, and we're just going to laminate this straight in. We're just going to take the antennas, and we're just going to run one straight out along the wing like that, and one to the back like that, so that we get our 90-degree separation. Just like that. If you want, you could put another hole in the wing and run one up through the top, but it really isn't necessary. This wing isn't going to be doing anything near long range. This is just a fun wing to play with, you know, at park distances, and I'm not concerned. I run a lot of my wires exactly, antennas exactly like that, and never have a problem. And the one thing we do want to do is take a little tape and put our antennas where we want them, so that while we're laminating, we don't have to think about those antennas trying to move on us. So I'm just going to take a little piece of tape. Just like that. And put this antenna straight out. Just put some tape over it. We'll take another little piece. Let this antenna go straight back. Just put some tape over it. There we go. I'm actually going to move this piece of tape because it's over that servo. There we go. And we've got 90 degrees of separation right there. So that neither antenna. The reason we always do 90 degrees like that is so that neither end, you're not looking at the end of either antenna no matter how you rotate the craft. Any way you rotate this, you can't look at both ends of those antennas at the same time. You're going to get signal from one of them. So just let that tape sit on there. I'm going to cut some laminate, and we're going to laminate over this bottom piece here. I'm just going to laminate everything and just try to wrap it around the leading edge a little. So let me grab some laminate. And we need the laminating iron to get out. That should be more than enough. Yeah, definitely more than enough. And we need a laminating iron. Just going to set my soldering iron over here off to the side. What did I do with the laminating iron? Okay, let's get that going and get that hot. And I cracked that up to about 3.5, which is going to be right around 300 degrees. Little foam pieces all over my desk. Remember, I said we don't want any seams facing towards the back, so we're just going to try to wrap all these seams up around the front. And we're going to angle these end cuts like this so that wind can't get to them either. If you were to angle that the other way, like this, then wind could hit that seam edge. So I'm just going to give this laminating iron a minute to get hot, and we're just going to go over this whole area again. And this will just add a little more strength. You know, we're not gluing this receiver in any way, just the laminate's going to hold it on, and it's going to do a fine job. So let's see if we get this hot. No, well, it's getting there. It's not there yet. So, take a smoke break. This laminating iron heats up pretty quick. Yeah. You can see there that laminate's just turning clear as I'm tacking it down. I'm just going to go over these antennas. And over the bottom of these servos. When you're laminating over antennas like this, just use the iron on each side of the antenna, right up to it. Get it stuck down. And then the edge of the antenna, the edge of the soldering iron will just stick the antenna down itself. Okay. So we gotta trim some of this off. Here. Just like we laminated the first time. Just keep that iron moving. I'm going to crank up the heat a little bit more. You want anywhere where you can see the gray is where the glue hasn't been activated yet. I just want to get on that. So you can see that cut edge where I put those two pieces of laminate together. It just disappears. And without a magnifying glass, it's hard to find. I mean, you have to really be looking closely to try to find the edges of one piece of laminate that's been put onto another piece of laminate. It's just going to disappear. Okay. I'm going to stick this receiver down like that. One thing I did forget is these pins. Let me just cut a little slot there. I'm going to pull these pins I'm using out for the CG. We don't want to laminate over those. And when we're done this, we'll just remeasure the CG and put those pins back in. Okay. Make sure you get it all stuck down, especially right around these antennas and in between the antennas. Choose the edge of your iron to get in there. Laminate, like I said, sticks really well to itself. So you've already got laminate on there, just stick this laminate to it and you're going to be good to go. So the antenna I wanted to bubble up on the end, so I just put a little relief cut. There we go. There we go. And just make sure you cover up all the lines that you cut. Having a little piece extra laminate on the bottom like this is good for the plane. It's going to be constantly landing on this. You're going to be sliding it in, so it's good to have a little extra protection down here on the bottom. Okay, so we're going to have to wrap this up around the nose. So right here, there are two corners. We're going to have to just make a relief cut. And actually, got entirely too much laminate there, so I'm just going to cut it off. So just wrap up around and that's it. Same thing here. We just want to wrap up around about 1 inch. And the only reason we're even wrapping it up around it all is so that we don't have any seams facing into the wind. And so that's going to go just like that. Yep. That, and take a corner off here to get around these 3D printed pieces. Okay, And I'm just going to put a couple relief cuts. There we go. Maybe one here in the middle. Okay. Let's wrap it. We're also adding another layer right to the leading edge, where if we crash, that is going to be the part that takes the most damage. I'd say we got 3 layers on there now, right up at the front. So that's going to be good for crash protection. And with me flying, it's probably going to need it. Okay. Just getting all the gray spots out. Okay. 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 Good. Alright, just this last little section over here to finish up. Okay. Alright, so actually I have that wrapping around too far, so I had to cut it around the servo. There we go. Just cut a little square out. Okay. And this last little piece. There we go. Okay. Just gonna check and make sure we get it all stuck down really well. There's no gray glue area showing, like right here. Alright, very good. And that's that. So we're going to turn this off, pull the plug, let that cool.